struck 2 o'clock, and I would like to formally introduce everybody who's just joining us to our webinar. I'm your host, Charlie, and I'm the features editor here at Call Center Helper. And today we'll be looking at metrics and surpassing those industry standards. And today I have 3 really great speakers with me to introduce to you. Our first is Miguel Catano from TalkDesk. How are you doing today, Miguel?
Hello, Charlie. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Miguel. And for those of us, in our audience who are just joining us, could you quickly give us a brief outline of kind of your role within TalkDesk?
Yeah, so I work at TalkDesk with very closely with the product teams to try to understand how technology and how innovation can help contact centers improve their metrics, but improve also their procedures to get to the objectives that they established. So technology for contact center, that's my work there.
Excellent. Yeah, and I know you have lots of great stats to share with us on industry standards, which really looking forward to seeing. And also I'm looking forward to seeing our second presentation from Jason Roberts. How are you doing today, Jason?
I'm really well, thank you, Charlie. Thanks for the invitation.
Excellent. No, it's great to have you here. And just for everybody joining us, could you give us a quick little outline as to your role within the industry?
Yeah, so I used to lead some large contact centers across the UK and also some offshore sites. Spent a number of years, probably around 20 years now in the contact center industry, and set up Appropriate Consulting around 12 months ago and started working with some really good forward-thinking businesses around how do we shape things for the future around the whole customer support area, whether that be interpreting the data that the likes of TalkDesk can provide now, or helping to look at how do we actually really translate that for both our colleague and our customer.
Yeah, and I know you have kind of a very interesting system for how you can use your use metrics in your contact center to share with us, which I'm really looking forward to seeing. And also, I'm very looking forward to, it's a very common theme across my intro so far, to seeing Katie Forsyth, our third speaker's presentation. How are you doing today, Katie?
Hi, Charlie. I'm good, thank you. Thanks.
Excellent. And yeah, it's great to have you here, Katie. And could you just give our audience a little bit of kind of background into your role within contact centers?
Yeah, of course. Thanks. Hi, good to meet everyone. Hi, I'm Katie. So I have been involved in contact center recruitment for 25 years, set Red up 20 years ago, and we are now a leading UK contact center recruitment business, working with a large number of large UK brands across the UK delivering volume contact center recruitment solutions. So I'm here today not to talk about that, but to give the agent's viewpoint on metrics and the agent experiences from research and so on that Red has conducted.
I think it's always very interesting, particularly now, to kind of hear the agent perspective on all of these things. I don't think it's ever been more crucial, and the disconnect been more so than now. So yeah, 3 really great presentations to bring you. But before we get into those, just a few little bits of housekeeping for everybody. The first is that we really like to make these webinars as interactive as possible. So if you could join us in the chat room also, which you can find at cch.chat, just open that up in another tab or maybe on your phone. And join the discussion there. You can ask questions to our panelists, which we'll come back to after the presentations, and also send in some tips, and the winning tip will win a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates. So there's always a little incentive there. And also another incentive for being in our chat room is that you can download the slides at the end of the webinar to catch up on any of those kind of key learnings that have been shared. And also you can join our quiz, which we'll come to after Jason's presentation, and also another chance to win a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates. So always a good opportunity. And when I'm not in the hosting seat for these webinars and I'm watching them, what I really like to do is put the webinar on one side of my screen and have the chat room on the other, so I can just kind of keep focused on both and enjoy the webinar from that perspective. And then finally, if you want to catch up on our replays and again download the slides from our great speakers, they'll be available later this afternoon on www.callcenterhelper.com/recorded-webinars. Although again, we do have the slides we're really drumming in the champagne or box of chocolates, because who doesn't like that for either for a best question or a best tip. Excellent. So we now come to our first presentation. So I will pass control over to Miguel, who will share his presentation with you.
Can you see my slides, Charlie?
Yes, they're just coming up on the screen. Yeah, perfect. There we go.
Okay, perfect. So hello everyone. Thank you for attending. So today we are talking about metrics, but more than going to definitions, how to set your KPIs, how to set your goals. My main objective is to make sure that during this 10 minutes, I can help you discover a way or a tool to help you manage your contact center better and to reach your goals. But when we talk about metrics, it is important to put them in context. I thought it would be useful to take a look at the new times that came with COVID-19 in 2020, which continue to affect us in 2021, and it will continue definitely to affect us. So we will look into the way that we are managing contact centers right now and the way that we have adapted to the pandemic. How were metrics were impacted. We will look into, we will be looking at some KPIs from Talkdesk's Kpi Benchmark Reports, understand what is happening and why metrics are so critical at this point. And lastly, but I would say most importantly, we will look into some tools that can help you manage in these uncertain times, still improving your contact center KPIs. So the first thing that we need to acknowledge is that contact centers and most businesses for that matter have changed forever. One of those visible changes was the move to work from home. And now I'm not saying that contact centers will be working from home forever. That will definitely not happen. What I'm saying is that this pandemic forced many contact centers to manage a workforce working from home, to move to the cloud, to improve processes, to implement new technologies. And although this was a forced change, it brings new opportunities. It brings new tools to help contact centers improve their KPIs and their results. And we will see some of those tools in just a few moments. The second thing I would like to recognize is that contact centers faced peak volumes like never seen before during the first lockdown. And this happened because the contact center became the only available connection between companies and customers, because consumers were pushed remotely and online, because flights, reservations, other services had to be canceled or postponed. But the fact is that all this conjunction of forces led to a rise in contacts, and with that, contact center KPIs were in fact disrupted. I brought you this table from our Talkdesk Kpi Benchmark Report. I think it's interesting to see. This report, we do this report every year to understand the trends in the market, to understand where our customers are improving or not. And then we compared these 5 metrics: abandon rate, average speed of answer, average hold time, talk time, and service level. And we compared it, as you can see, we compared it the first half of 2020 with the first half of 2019. And we can see that in general, KPIs were disrupted. For example, average talk time rose by almost 20%, average hold time rising by 50%. And so the bad news is this will happen again, right? I'm not saying, I'm not talking about this confinement, but crises will come in the future. And it can be a big one like COVID, but it can be a small one. It can be that you launch a product that has a malfunction. That happens, right? And so the good news is that because contact centers were forced to make those changes that we talked before, we are closer to being prepared for these events. And so now I would like to show you how different technologies and tools can help you manage better in this new reality, post COVID-19, but also help you prepare and act during, crisis periods and certain periods. So first, let's talk about a foundational layer of tools, the tools to track. Peter Drucker used to say, if you cannot measure it, you cannot manage it. I genuinely believe that. I genuinely believe that you cannot manage a contact center if you don't have the tools that help you monitor KPIs, but also give you and get you the insights you need to decide better, to act with confidence on the data that is generated in your contact center. So here I identified 3 essential tools. The first one, real-time analytics. So this tool gives you, live understanding of what is happening in the contact center right now. And if you are managing a workforce from home, this tool is very helpful. And you should look for tools that give you alarms so that you can very quickly understand if some metric is falling out of the threshold and act in real time. And also the capacity to monitor and barge into calls to help agents in difficult calls, to help the customer reach a solid, a positive conclusion to the interaction, and to also train agents during calls. Then we have BI tools. Everyone uses them. They provide you an historical view of your data, identify trends. You can discover pitfalls on your contact center. You can improve these efficiency KPIs, and you can continuously improve performance. And for this particular tool, I believe that customization is one of the most important features. Each contact center is different. The capacity to adapt your analytics is crucial. It doesn't matter if you have 400 pre-built reports if none of them actually show you what your contact center needs, right? And we manage a lot of customers with very many different needs, and we see this. We cannot be creating we Talkdesk cannot be creating reports for each one of our customers, right? So we give the customization feature so that they can create themselves. Then we have speech analytics. I know many contact centers are not using this technology yet. In my opinion, it's a critical piece of the puzzle. These tools use AI to analyze every customer interaction and give you, the topics that are being said in your contact center, give the transcriptions, the call sentiment. And personally, I think that speech analytics can be, the tool that brings contact centers to the centerpiece of decision making in a company. And for me, speech analytics is important. Also, when you look into speech analytics solutions, it's important to look at alarms. So if you can define a threshold when a given competitor is being mentioned too many times, maybe they are doing a promotion, right? And you need to know that. You need to react fast. You need to tell your pricing strategist, build me a promotion that can fight this offer. Or maybe you are a telecom or energy company, you have an outage in a region. Very quickly with speech analytics, you can understand where is this happening and how can you solve it. So after you have this foundational layer, after you have the tools to track, you must prepare for the future. And that means setting up applications that can help you improve your efficiency and buffer contact volatility without sacrificing customer experience. So I know I'm focusing a lot on efficiency metrics here, but again, these tools keep the balance. The important thing is that these tools keep the balance between what is the operational efficiency of your contact center and the customer satisfaction. A good example of these tools to prepare for the future are conversational self-service tools. Virtual agents are a great example of it. Right now, these technologies are at a stage where you can automate 30% of your use cases. Depends, of course, depends on your business, of course. But if you do take these 30%, you're taking a lot of pressure out of your workforce. You're improving the capacity of your contact center, and you're improving definitely your service level. So if you have a call pick, that can be immensely valuable. Additionally, virtual agents are a new way for customers to solve their issues, right? So they don't have to wait in queues. Virtual agents are always available. That brings CSAT, that brings less abandoned calls, that brings outside of business hours support. So all good stuff on virtual agent. And another technology that also brings a lot of value is AI-powered assistive technologies for agents. So these technologies hear the conversations between agents and customers and guide agents in real time, give them next best actions so that they can solve interactions faster. So this will help them reduce hold times, reduce talk times, and therefore reduce average handle time as a whole, but also reach a solid conclusion, increase consistency on the way that you are solving problems in your contact center, whether you are a junior agent or a very experienced one. The third chapter is about tools to act. So when your company starts to predict a contact center, a contact peak, it is very important that you have flexible tools that you can, use to act and lower customer and agent effort. And usually, I will start with the outbound dialer. Usually, when you think about outbound dialers, you think about a sales business case, right? But the truth is, it gives you the capacity to proactively contact your customers. You can try to solve the problem. You can try to push the call for the future. But either way, the fact is that you are calling, you are predicting a problem. And when that happens, believe me, your customer will be very, very satisfied. And at the same time, you are flattening the curve of the number of contacts that is entering your contact center. The last tool that I have here, and just to finish, is customer journey designer tools. And everyone has these tools. I think what is important is to have a flexible one, something that is easy to configure. Changing customer flows in minutes can be very helpful to get customers to the right agents, avoid transfers, reduce talk time, reduce average handle time, and of course improve customer satisfaction, because they get the right agent. They don't need to talk to 3 different agents to solve their problems. So I hope this were very condensed 10 minutes. I would have a lot to say about these tools, but I hope it was insightful, and I hope it was able to bring something new to the table. And if you are interested in knowing more about TalkDesk, about the benchmark report, or simply my views on technology and contact centers, I'm always open. Feel free to reach out. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Miguel. Lots of really great stuff there. I will kind of go through some of my key highlights that I kind of really wrote down myself there during your presentation in a moment. But what I'm going to do first of all for everybody in attendance is just put up a quick poll, and that's just if you'd like to hear more from Miguel and his team. Just let us know if you'd like to see a demonstration of any of the solutions that Miguel talked about there. Yeah, but some of the stuff that I found really kind of fascinating from that was to kind of really see those stats in the increase in abandon rate, in hold time and talk time compared to at the start of 2020 compared to 2019. I thought that was some really interesting stuff, and I know that report, we'll put a link to that report in the chat room as well, so everybody can see that properly. But I also note down that kind of your quote of if you can't measure it, you can't monitor it, which was really good. And kind of you discussing the role of kind of real-time analytics in the management of and how powerful it can be in the management of remote contact centers was very interesting. So excellent. And while you were presenting, Miguel, lots of tips and questions coming through from the chat room. So let's just quickly cover some of these. The first one's from Carolyn, who asks, I suppose this is one for you, Miguel, does the speech analytics accommodate different languages?
Yes. TalkDesk Speech Analytics right now accommodates around 30 different languages. So yeah, we are prepared for coverage of a wide spread of countries and languages. Excellent.
Yeah, great simple answer to that one. Another one addressed to you here, Miguel, from Robert, who says, hi Miguel, I'm a new support center manager. I've never managed a call center and have 0 training. I'm learning how to improve my small 5-person centers. KPIs it's critical. If one person is not doing a good job and needs training, it has a much greater impact on customer satisfaction since our center is so small. What KPIs, it'd be actually interesting to hear what Jason and Katie have to say about this one too, actually. So what KPIs would you say should be the most on my radar? And please speak a little bit about analyzing those metrics into actions.
Well, yeah, this is a little bit further away from the tools, right? This is about managing people also. I do believe that, if you have a good tools to track, as I said, you can definitely go, you can definitely see the whole picture of the contact center, but then you can zoom in and check each one of the agents. How are they performing? Are they letting the phone ring too much time? Are they refusing to answer, to pick up calls? Are they that can happen for many reasons. It doesn't have to be that the person is not motivated or it can be for many reasons. So the first thing I would say is use these tools to check, okay, this is the person that maybe needs training, and then go to try to find out the why. And the why, I would say, lies a lot on looking at transcriptions of the calls, looking at the overall, the overall performance of that agent a long time. And then I'm always in favor of this, talking to the person, understanding what motivates the agent, why isn't he performing, and only in that way, understanding what the other side values. Only in that way you can actually put an efficient training plan in place to get that person to the right place. So yeah, I don't know if I answered the question, but
yeah. No, that was excellent. I completely agree. It's kind of, as you say, it's a lot on the people side, this one. Jason, would you have anything to kind of add to that? Oh, I think you're on mute at the moment, Jason.
See, I get the badge for that first, yeah. I think the one thing I would suggest is, as Miguel was saying there, it's actually about just fine-tuning into what are the simple metrics that will tell you how the customer feels around the response that you've received. So certainly from Robert's point of view, I think looking at some of those initial first contact resolution points, repeat contact points, looking at the net easy would be important in this sort of size contact center. There will probably be some very quick wins that we can get into there. And just on the chat there's some very interesting insight from Alex on the chat that was talking about how you need to make sure that you have briefed out the reason and the rationale for those measures to your team, so they all understand the component parts of them and how important they all are to the customer outcome. But certainly from Robert's point of view, I think there are some hygiene factors that, yes, we worry about, which is making sure we're there for a speed of response. But what matters more is the outcome and the quality of the outcome resolution. So I would focus more on sort of the customer outcome metrics than I would perhaps some of the hygiene factors right now.
Excellent. Yeah, that's some really great stuff from both you, Jason, and Miguel there. I think we covered that question quite thoroughly, so I'll quickly move on to a tip from Tom, who says, some KPIs and metrics can contradict good customer experience. Be careful what you go after. I mean, Jason, this very much kind of links into what you said. Yeah. But Katie, would you go along with that too?
It's really interesting, that last question. I was going to say, for me, I always see it from an agent's perspective, and following on from what Jason said, this is about, isn't it? It's talking to the agents. And if you're starting to manage a small team that we were talking about a moment ago, it's finding out why they are struggling with the metrics, and are the metrics there for vanity reasons, or are they there for real reasons? And really getting to know which metrics really matter, not only to the customer and the efficiency of the operation, but really importantly to what the agents are having to deliver. So it's getting to the grassroots of seeing the wood from the trees almost. And I agree entirely with the comment that we picked on there, Jason, about throwing it back to the advisors.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting point, Katie, as well. Like, are they there from a vanity point, and are they there just because they've always been there and nobody's ever questioned it? Yeah. I think it's a very interesting topic. But yeah, we could talk about that for an age, I'm sure. But now we'll move on actually to a quick poll for everybody before we go into your presentation, Jason. So I'll quickly launch that for everybody. Quickly get that on the screen and launch a poll. And this poll is who determines which metrics you follow in the contact center. This actually leads quite nicely on from our discussion there. So lots of different options for you there. If I've missed any on this poll question, just put them in the chat room, and you can pick. Don't feel like you have to just pick one. There's select all that you can apply, or that apply. So I'll give everybody a quick couple of moments here to answer this and share the results with everybody now. And yeah, we have 40% the contact center manager, then 37% the customer service experience director. I'm slightly surprised maybe more people don't have that position, but I thought that's really where a lot of the metrics would come from. The stakeholders, operations managers. So yeah, we've got a good spread actually throughout all the answers there. Is that what you would expect to see, Jason?
Yeah, I think it is an interesting spread, because actually what that would tell me is nobody's really quite sure. I think if you look at the overall industry, we've got lots of different businesses set up and structured in different ways that over time have adopted what was either there before or is just the latest buzz topic that actually matters to them at the time. But yes, I would say heavily weighted towards the senior management have set those KPIs rather than engaging with the colleagues or indeed the stakeholders. And again, it's back to the point that I'll come on to in a moment as to just who are the metrics there for and what's the purpose of them.
Yeah, excellent. I think that leads very well into your presentation, actually. So I will just take those results away from everybody and let you put up your slides now, Jason.
Thank you.
There you go, excellent.
1 second.
It's always the pressure of sharing the screen.
Okay, so I think, again, good afternoon, everybody. I've got sort of 10 minutes to summarize where I think we're moving with metrics and where I think the sort of direction of contact centers is taking us at the moment. But I want to just also touch back and look at some of the points that Miguel just made there. What we need to remember, and what sometimes I think businesses are losing focus on, is when you look at how we are all rapidly deploying to digital solutions for our commodity contact and for the easier self-service options that you've got, it then leaves us in the contact center estate and in the customer management estate looking after the more difficult, more complex scenarios. So in terms of using metrics that you've had historically, looking at how long something would take to be handled is not really appropriate for the future, because what you will have done is already built in your digital solutions a commodity way of dealing with those contacts. So what you're left with is a far more complex measure, and often one that's far more emotionally connected for the customer. So the challenge of our colleague going forward is not just necessarily to hit the metric of picking up that phone and being there to respond, but actually it's around the empathy that they can show, the quality of the conversation they can have, and the coaching that they've had to provide them with the insight to really deal with more complex issues. So what I've seen across contact centers for many, many years is that people are still remaining to talk about average handling time. And for those planners that are on the line and for those forecasters, I fully appreciate it needs to be there. But could we please just turn that language from saying that we're looking for average handling times into an appropriate handling time and an appropriate resolution for each customer? So then from a planning point of view, it's still there for you. You can still have your metric and that data. But from a customer and outcome-led colleague point of view, it can be a far more positive conversation for coaching. So one of the things I would always suggest and ask industry and businesses to look at is, would average ever be our ambition for our customer estate? Because if we're setting it up on averages, I would question whether that's the right decision. And then looking at how we best select the right outcome metrics, it's a point here of, do we want to look at a metric that talks about that particular transaction, or are we talking about the customer's interaction as a whole? Because that would be the summary of many contacts. It may be that you've had a web journey, you've then had a web chat, you then decide to call. Can we pull those together and can we get an outcome metric post the calls and post that resolution to actually say, these are the numbers we need? And for that, it may be first contact resolution measured at a 1 week window or something such as that. You might have to extend that significantly because you may be agreeing with a customer that you will redeliver a product in a period of time, or you will offer a deal that will be valid for a period of time. So again, be very careful about where you select your outcome metric and where you suggest that you position any measure point that you have. Because as Miguel was saying right at the top of the call there, if you can measure it, then yes, you can target it and yes, you can improve it. But also sometimes we do go after, as Katie was saying, it's sort of the vanity measures there. And I think there is a bit about this that we've got to be very careful about. So the grid in the middle kind of talks about my way of sort of thinking, where are our primary drivers when we look at our metrics? So are we talking about our customer? Are we concerning ourselves with our people? And actually, is there a balance across all 4 of these categories to both financial and commercial decisions that mirrors the vision of the group and the business that we're working with? So if you're clear on your vision, and if you're clear on how you want to measure those metrics across the group, you should, and I would recommend that there is a dashboard of metrics based around the 4 key areas that you see on the central dial. The most important part of that, though, is actually what do you do about proactively developing and monitoring and measuring those? Because again, taking the point of all the digital transformation that's been going on at the moment, you may well see average handling time increasing because it's a higher emotional state that the customer is calling in. by far and away now this year, we've seen a far more emotional requirement for our colleagues to show resilience, to show an understanding, to show empathy, far greater than ever expected. And I think the industry itself needs to be applauded for the way the teams have coped and survived and adapted to what this year has brought. But also we need to say, well, actually, what does that then mean for our metrics? Because if you're budgeting next year in the same way as you have before, are you measuring the true customer experience of your business? And are you going to truly keep a handle on what your colleagues are feeling within that business? So again, a question from that would be perhaps to ask who benefits from the metric that you measure. So then looking across the spectrum of the 4 areas, what tools do we have to drive in the moment sentiment analysis? Again, picking up on Miguel's point, many sites now have speech analytics, many sites now have in-life speech analytics, but it's how you can get a reasonably strong system culture to promote proactive management and to highlight and flag to the organization and across your business customers that have struggled to find a resolution. Maybe there is a flag built into the system, such as TalkDesk's tools, where you get repeat contact flags so that you can see that that customer has been in before, and you can pass that through and deal with it in perhaps a different area of your site. You can have somebody more experienced look after that call. Taking next best action motions to understand exactly what's happening. You'd then look at that as a metric to say, well, actually, how many of our colleagues have forwarded and how many of our colleagues have then asked for support? Have you ensured that you've got everything that you need to give the framework and coaching time to those colleagues? But the tools that you have in the business are going to really be important for that. I think the second part, just in terms of the same piece around tools, is again looking back at how you categorize your metrics. Are they customer and outcome led? Are they financial or KPIs? There are some real simple hygiene factors that we absolutely know contact centers need to live with, and that's around utilization and that's around our response KPIs. But the customer outcomes and the colleague metric of engagement is so important to the future that I really do feel we need to look at what structures we've got to take the organization to take advantage of insights that can come from our customer base. So is it that we talk through the opportunities that agents have spotted in process improvement, how they have then driven that process improvement request or change through the organization to help ensure that when the colleague feels and hears a customer concern or an issue that they need to pick up, they need to understand that when they talk about it, someone will listen. And when they put that forward, someone will hear their voice. Because right now we've got quite a lot of contact centers across the world still operating on some relatively basic metrics. We've got some very visionary metrics out there now and some very new data, because the data set and the way that we can look at data has changed absolutely immeasurably in the last 3 years, I would say. And certainly in the past 18 months, we've taken probably 10 years of digital deployment and development and made that live, which is a fabulous acknowledgement of both an industry that pivoted as needed and has adapted brilliantly, but also now this is the point and this would be the moment where I feel it's worthwhile talking to the business, understanding if it is your senior stakeholders who've set those KPIs, just what is the driver of that KPI? Who is the primary benefactor of that KPI? Is it so the finance team can measure a number? Is it so that the customer insight team can understand where we are in the market? Or is it actually that your colleagues feel valued in your business? And if you haven't got a balanced dashboard of metrics in that manner, I'd suggest there's probably still a space for a little bit of change. Because again, coming back to some of the words Katie used and across the top of the slide there, it's about proactive metrics that matter rather than just numbers. And then one other thing that I ask about in terms of frameworks and structures, if we're listening to our colleagues and if we can hear the voice of the customer coming through, does that not now mean that we're moving from being a contact center or a call center to becoming a true customer hub? And does that not give us the opportunity for our people to start to ensure that they can put forward their ideas, their thoughts and their views and challenge the business to improve our performance through process improvement? Because remembering, with all of the digital support we've now got out there, there's every opportunity for us to take away the commodity contact and build an enriched contact that our colleagues can then build for. It does mean we're going to have to significantly change our resource and our approach in terms of a more customer focused, emotionally led, emotionally resilient team who can deal with the metrics of the future. But our role as leaders is to ensure that we've got metrics that balance across the approach in all 4 factors, and then also have a framework to review and understand them and take them forward, with the primary goal of obviously improving our customer outcomes and, yes, hitting the number of our overall vision, which is no doubt to be leaders in their market. So I hope that helps as a bit of insight as to my thoughts around metrics and monitoring and where we may go. There's been a lot of challenges and change over the last 12 months, and hopefully these are some questions that might be helpful or useful for leaders there to pose when looking at the metrics for the year ahead.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Jason. Lots of really great stuff there, and I'll take everybody through some of the really key takeaways. I mean, there was lots just on that slide alone of really great takeaways, but I'll take everybody through some of the key takeaways that I took from that in a moment. But quickly, what I'm going to do is just encourage everybody who's not yet in the chat room, quickly go across there, because we're shortly going to move on to a quiz. And you need to be in the chat room to press the buttons to be in with the chance of winning a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates. So well worth being in there. And if you want to take part, just simply go to cch.chat, or if you fancy more of a challenge, there's a much longer URL there for you to copy. So in 1 or 2 words, if you could just put also in the chat room, what did you like best about Jason's presentation? I thought there was lots of really great stuff. I really liked your point on it's time to switch from averages to appropriate, and should average ever be an ambition? You were I very much agree with that point. Also, you made a point about being very careful about where you kind of collect your metric data, and does that kind of reflect the customer experience, and also kind of the whole idea of creating a dashboard of metrics around kind of the customer, people, financial and commercial. I thought kind of setting your metrics out on that is a really good framework. And yeah, lots of really, really great stuff there. So yeah, I hope everybody is now into our chat room, and what I will do for everyone is I'll quickly bring up the quiz. But yes, it's these A, B, C, D buttons in the bottom left of the chat room that you'll need to use to vote. So I'll bring it across for everybody now. Excellent, and let's begin the quiz. So our first question is, how much did average hold time increase in the first 6 months of 2020 compared to the same period in 2019? Was it A, a fifth, B, a quarter, C, a third, or D, a half? I'll let everybody vote for that. And this stat actually comes from TalkDesk's report, and it has been changed slightly in terms of the layout, but it was actually included in Miguel's presentation. So it'll be interesting to see how many of you get this one. I'll give you a couple more moments though to answer this, and then I will move on to the next question. Yeah, a lot of people getting that one right, which is great to see. And that's from, according to a 2020 TalkDesk report, average hold time across the contact center industry rose from 14 seconds to 21 seconds in the space of 1 year, which I think really does kind of reflect the changing scenarios that we all faced last year. So yeah, second question is, which metric is the most commonly used as a measure of performance for customer service teams? Is it A, average handling time, B, customer satisfaction, C, quality scores, or D, service level? I think this is quite a controversial question in many ways, but I won't give away any hints to the answer. Yeah, I see all these votes coming in, so I'll quickly skip on. And yeah, a lot of people getting that one right in saying service level. And this is quite controversial because service level alongside AHT were the most commonly used metrics for measuring the performance of customer service teams, despite primarily being used for WFM. Yeah, and that comes from a call center helper 2020 report, the spring report. And excellent. We come on to the third of 4 questions now, and this is, according to over 700,000 entries into our Erlang calculator, what is the average industry target for occupancy? This is quite a difficult question, so congratulations to any of you who get this one right. Is it A, 78.7, B, 83.7%, 88.7%, or 93.7%? And I apologize for being mean when I created this question. Excellent. We'll wait for the last couple of votes to come in now before I move on to the next one. Excellent. And yeah, actually most people getting that one right, which is really good to see. 83.7% is correct. And the average occupancy target for resource planning is 83.7%. This is good news, as keeping occupancy below 85% is generally best practice to avoid agent burnout. So yeah, really good to see a lot of people getting that one right. And as we come into our last question, Matt is currently in the lead. See if he can maintain that lead as we come into our last question, which is true or false. 19% of contact centers report that mental health has increased long-term sickness figures in comparison to March 2020. Is it A, true, or B, false? And this comes from one of Casey's recent studies from Red Recruitment. So it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how many of you get this one right. Excellent. And yeah, most people getting that one right. It is in fact true. And this statistic came from an October 2020 report from Red Recruitment, which also found that 25% of contact centers are now reporting attrition close to pre-pandemic levels, which is quite a scary stat. But it's a stat that we will lead into your presentation with Katie. So I will stop sharing my slides now and pass over to you.
Thank you. Right.
I did realize that I forgot to announce the winner, but I will come back to whoever saw that slide. I will go back to that, and you will win a bowl of champagne or a box of chocolate. So apologies to that, whoever just won that quiz.
Right.
Quickly moving on too quickly, but I will get back to you.
Okay, so hopefully we can see my screen. Can we, Charlie?
Yes, perfect.
Super. Okay, hi everybody, and let me just minimize that so I can see my own screen. So I'm here to talk to you about how we think agents are going to affect contact centers this year, and indeed how agents might affect us exceeding those all those metrics that we've been talking about and that the gentlemen before me have spoken about. So I think it's probably useful to look retrospectively first to just set some context. So the back end of last year, Red did some research with a number of, and this is a UK piece of research. So I make my apologies to those non-UK based here. But we did a large piece of research on centres in the UK about how they'd found the year, and that was a very large report. So I've pulled out 3 key statistics here that pull on today's topic. 53% of the centres reporting drop in agent productivity, 81% seeing an increase in abandonment rates, and 94% reporting increases in wait times and AHTs. None of that will surprise us given the year we've had. Now, in a normal year and a normal economy, that would cause a really difficult environment, wouldn't it? We'd be looking at big attritions, high stress and everything else. However, what the same leaders were reporting were 61% of the centres were saying they had improved engagement despite this, 71% improved attendance and 96% reduced attrition. Now, we all know why that is. We're in a pandemic year. The agents felt exactly how we all felt. They were grabbing hold of anything that was secure. No one was going to leave their jobs in the middle of when the world was going mad, and they wanted to grab hold and keep hold of those jobs. So that was last year, and that's what senior leaders from around the UK were saying they saw last year. So then we then asked them, okay, so what are you expecting in 2021? And here's what we were told at the very tail end of last year. Now, we know the majority, every centre in the UK is prioritising customer experience and operational efficiency this year. We're looking to get best results against lowest cost, right? We were then told 31% of the centres were saying we need to increase our processes, largely because of the home working elements coming into factor there. Now that means we need improved agent skill. They need to learn those processes. 40% were saying we're embedding new technology or telephony to drive business value. We need to teach those agents how to use that technology and that telephony. And 63% were telling us we're expecting 2021 to give us more complaints, more vulnerable customers, more complex queries, greater call length. And what that leads to is agents needing even more resilience than we had to show last year. And we had to show resilience in bucket loads last year. Now, on top of that, we know as an industry, customer expectations are now growing again exponentially. Tolerance for customers is shortening. Last year they were very forgiving of us. queries are equally, if not more complex, and traffic is still increasing. Occupancy, I'd love, you know, we talk about occupancy, don't we, in that last question, Charlie, about 88%. We know occupancy was extremely high last year, and we're expecting it to be maintained or even higher this year. So what that leads us with is we'd all love to be running customer excellent and operationally excellent businesses. However, that relies on our agents, and our agents are having to operate this year to a really, really tough backdrop, learning new skills, working in a stressful environment. So really demanding. So when we look at that, we think, okay, how are we going to hit these metrics? What do we need to do? Well, we need to know how the agents are feeling now. And this is hot off the press. This is January's research from Red, 295 agents from across the UK. And we've asked them, how are you feeling right now? Now, I haven't got the percentages because this is literally off the press a few days ago, but the themes are: agents are tired. They're really tired. They feel like they gave their all last year, and they're now in a position of feeling it's almost business as usual. And I hate to use the word exciting about last year because it was a catastrophic, horrendous year for all of us. However, at that point, the agents were using their wartime spirit of, right, we just need to dig in, get our heads down, do the very best that we can for our brand. Now it's just a bit monotonous. They're working from home largely. They're being extremely forgiving of processes and procedures that aren't working for them, and they're feeling a little bit fatigued with it. So on top of that, we've got a confident industry. We've got an industry that is far more confident than we were expecting it to be at this point. And the large majority of centres, I'll give you some data for this, but they're recruiting at the moment. And we've also got other industries in the UK targeting our skilled contact centre staff. So what we're left with are a powerful agent base, which we often have, particularly with millennials and Gen Zs, but they're now demanding of their employers. Last year, they were very forgiving. They're now becoming demanding. And so we now have a bit of an increased threat of attrition. So that's how they're feeling. Let's look at what they're telling us they want. What do you as centres need to consider the agents are telling us they want? In order to stay with their centres, what do they need? 44% of the agents are saying they need more time to improve and develop. Last year, there was, training, development, coaching. It wasn't given nearly as freely as it should have been because we were all in panic. They're wanting more training and development. 74%, and we all know this, are asking for more real-time support, be it knowledge banks, be it more time with team leaders. Poor team leaders get the blame for everything, don't they? But they are asking for more team leader support. Here's the elephant in the room: 61% better opportunities and rewards. So they feel like they've really dug in for you in the last year. Now they want rewarding for it. And it'll be really interesting to see what salaries do in 2021. And then 91%, and here's the big question, Jason and I have been talking about it earlier today, but 91% saying, I don't want to go back to pre-COVID where I'm 100% in the office, but they are telling us they want to be in the office predominantly, but they want it to fit with their work-life balance. They want a blended approach. And, that's a presentation in its own right. But just so you know, the great majority, and it's over 80% of agents saying they want to be weighted into the office and less time at home. Okay, so that's what agents are saying they want. What about that? That's how we retain and engage them, or some of the points. Communication's a big one there as well, but I've only got a certain amount of time. So if we're engaging them and keeping them, how do we make them more efficient? So we've asked the agents, what's stopping you being productive? So we can talk about these metrics till we're blue in the face, but actually if the agents can't deliver them for you, they're not worth a lot. So we said to the agents, what's hindering your productivity? I'm going to zip through these because I don't want to go over time. 78% still saying technology is hindering their productivity. Training, 31%, so they need more training. Training's been rejected, particularly sub 12-month people. If you've got people being in your business sub 12 months, on the whole, they're crying out for more training. Poor knowledge banks, over a third. Lack of team leader support, poor team leaders, 2/3 of agents saying, I need more team leader time. Here's the frightening one: over a quarter of home working agents saying that their environment prohibits them hitting their metrics. A fifth of home workers saying broadband stops them. Unrealistic customer demands, this has gone up massively. Last year, customer demands, agents were reporting customers were being wonderful with them. Now, agents are telling us, actually, customers need to be on the phone a long time. It's complex calls. It's really unrealistic. So that's hindering their productivity. And over a quarter of agents telling us they're having to learn new channels. As we've all shifted to become more efficient, they're being taught new channels. So that gives you a sort of whistle-stop tour of, okay, how are agents helping us or hindering us from meeting the metrics? I wanted to just go over a couple of predictions so that we touch on the key metrics that I'm sure you'd expect me as a recruiter and a retainer to talk about. The first is shrinkage. From the agent murmurings that we've been having from all of our research, also from us talking to our client base, those of you looking at shrinkage figures this year to hit your metrics, we're certainly going to need to factor in increased sickness, whether it's fatigue of home workers or whether it's actual sickness from office workers or stress from either. Sickness levels we're expecting to rise. More time out for shrinkage for coaching and real-time support. Holidays, we're all desperate to go on holiday. It's no different from the agents. We had to force them to take certain percentages before September last year, didn't we? This year, they're going to be asking for holiday as soon as they can. Ongoing IT downtime for home workers, that's not gone away, and longer wrap-up and internal resolution time for escalations for blended workforces. Unfortunately, agents are saying that's a real prohibitor still. And finally, the last minute that I've got, just talking about attrition. When we look at metrics, attrition is vital. Keeping knowledge in place, maintaining our really excellent workforces to keep productivity levels where they need to be. Attrition has been, in my 25 years in contact centres, if someone had said to me, you'll see attrition at less than 5%, I would never have believed them. Lockdown 1 last year, obviously attrition fell, sub 5% easily, for obvious reasons. Lockdown 2, it went up to 16%. We're now seeing it flattening at about 19% at the moment. Before lockdown 3, we were up to sub-COVID levels, some regions showing 25% attritions. What are we predicting for this year? Well, all of the forums that I'm working with and all of the client base are expecting very sharp increases for all the reasons I've talked about in this. We're saying over 30%. I'm building in 45% with a number of the clients that I consult on behalf of. Just to talk to you about that, 86% of centres are actively recruiting at the moment, and 31% of those at excess levels to what they forecast in budget. So that puts pressure on attrition. And a final point before I sign off, please, when you're looking at attrition, as Jason's commented earlier, we need to look at onboarding, particularly homework, remote workers more effectively. Onboarding cohorts of home workers is causing increased attrition and slower speed to competence, and that will certainly hit metrics. So a lot of work being done on that at the moment, but it's a definite to consider. And that's it, that's me done. So if you're going to surpass your industry standards and exceed the metrics that we all want to measure, we must retain and support our brilliant agents. And that is me.
Excellent, great, thank you for that, Katie. I've noted down, again, lots of really interesting stuff. But if everybody in our chat room could also just put in 1 or 2 words, what did you like best about Katie's presentation? It's great, we always like collecting great feedback. And I'll also say that the winner of the quiz was Kelly29. I'm very sorry for taking your prize moment away from you by mistake, but congratulations, you'll win a bottle of champagne or a box of chocolates. So yeah, some of the really great findings that I picked out from your presentation, Katie, kind of the general kind of contact center trends that customer expectations are growing, but their tolerance is shortening. There's a feeling of business as usual, kind of despite a lot of contact centers still kind of being in kind of not really planned out their policies and things like that to the fullest. That the agent base is now much more powerful and have greater demands was a very interesting point. And kind of lots of great stats, like 74% need more real-time support, 29% saying that they had poor knowledge bases, and I'm sure that's actually something that Miguel could probably probably help out with there. And 86% of contact centers are actively recruiting, which was quite a very eye-opening stat actually. So yeah, lots of really great stuff there. And what we'll do to kind of bring this webinar to close is just kind of look at some of your top tips from the chat room and ask some of the questions to our panel. But first in, we have an opinion from Tom, who says, if you go for a walk with your dog, on average, you have 3 legs. Average is a very general indicator. That's very good. That links to your.
I might steal that, Joe. I might steal that, Tom. Thank you.
Yeah, it links very well. Links very well to your presentation, Jason. So Lisa's asking, no one in my department has any experience with gathering metrics. What's a good starting point when you're starting at 0? I don't know who to put this one to. I don't know, Jason, if you have any thoughts on this.
I think, as one of the other individuals in the chat room maybe responded, I think it's important to look at what metrics are important to you, Lisa. It's about looking at what are the contact types and what are the rationales and reasons behind the calls. But again, it is one of those points where if you were just to listen to those calls, look at the objectives and vision of the business and align to whichever goal you feel is the most appropriate to start with. If you've got 0 metrics, it would be an interesting one to just see what is available to you. There will be some metrics around customer satisfaction that you could certainly look for, and that's a great outcome metric to start with. If you haven't got tools or systems that give you that, maybe it's a case of looking at some post-contact survey that you can at least draw a comparable set of data from month on month and look for improvement. But yeah, very interesting if you've got 0 data as to where exactly do you start. But I would always look to customer outcome and colleague engagement being the 2 core drivers I would like to see in an early set of data.
Yeah, excellent. I think that's it's a very niche situation there, but I think, yeah, it's very interesting points there, Jason. We have a tip now from Alex, who says, explain the importance of your metrics and how they directly align to the needs of the customer and the business. Without this engagement, you'll have more challenges, in coaching to improve them. I think that's a very good tip. We have another one now from James, who says, look at what's important to you. What do you need to measure? Why do you need to measure it? Why? What can you do with the information that you have? And I think that links very well to some of the presentations that we've seen today. We have a question now for Katie from Melissa, who says, are any of the UK contact centres home-based? If so, are they paying for or reimbursing for internet costs, all as part of compensation?
Yeah, Melissa, thanks for that. And I did try to respond to you, but it's really difficult when you're keeping one ear on this one. Yeah. So if it wasn't very coherent, I apologise. This is a really interesting one because we've just seen this starting to really affect us. So agents are becoming much more savvy about this now. So in the recruitment phase, we're being asked far more now than we ever were last year. Okay, am I going to get my broadband paid for? What about the cost? HMRC, tax reductions because of home working. So we would never have had that from home working populations even a year ago. And now it's just people talking to each other, isn't it? In terms of our clients paying for it and our centres paying for it, at the moment, very few are. However, I would say we're talking to a number of people who, and Jason may be able to add to this as well, who are considering it at the moment. The big problem with it is blended workforces and making sure we keep the flexibility there of people who can move from home to office. So what most people are doing are incorporating it in the pay rate. And that's why we've now got lots of discussion going on about new salaries, which frightens me because please don't let's all put our salaries up. It won't solve anything. It will just cause us problems. But Jason, maybe you want to add to that.
I totally agree, Katie. I think a lot of people, so I've actually had that question posed in both of the clients that I'm working with at the moment. And in both scenarios, it's very similar to the outcome you've just described there. We're talking about what is the offset of you working from home is that you haven't got your travel costs that you used to have. And often one would be far greater than the other. But again, it's a comparable that is going to be challenged over the course of the next 12 months. I think if people do step out and start to do that as an independent payment, there is a risk to that blended workforce. And I'm with you as well, Katie. I think there is a general risk here that it becomes part of a confusion that isn't really necessary because your total cost of a day's work includes your travel cost and time. And at the moment, home working still gives you quite significant benefit on that in many cases. Yeah,
I agree.
Yeah, I think this is a very interesting topic, and kind of looking back over kind of home working policies and things like that to ensure these things are covered is a particularly interesting topic. Just a couple more tips before we close today. We have one from Louise, who says, when deciding what is the most important metric to you in regards to your metrics, I would say to think about those things that affect your customer journey. What will have an impact on possible return on business or customer satisfaction? Things like call quality, wait time, time to answer, hold time, which is a very interesting tip there. And we also have another tip in from Victoria, who says real-time analytics is what I'm finding issues. I have been a manager for a year within one contact center, and we have only just started recruiting a workforce planner who will be gathering our data for resourcing, but will also be looking at performance data. I've been collecting data myself since I started, and I'm struggling as we don't have a way of measuring wrap time, and I have had to teach myself as I have no previous knowledge on how to do this. Do you have, what advice would you maybe give to Victoria here, do you think, Miguel?
Well, the first advice is to contact us and know more about Talk Desk Live, which is our real-time analytics. But definitely, I think that this is a problem that many contact center face, especially in the beginning. I do think there are a lot of well thought out resources if you want to learn about KPIs, about metrics. Being here is a first step, right? Knowing us, seeing the presentations. I know Contact Center Helper has a lot of very insightful materials that you can use to learn more. And then when it comes to gathering the data and understanding what is happening, well, I truly believe that technology is a big part of that. Contact centers are the place where millions of interactions happen. There's a lot of information going through. If you are doing it manually, if you are sampling calls, you will not get the best possible outcome. So I would say that for data crunching, the analytics tools, AI tools are the way to go.
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting. I mean, I'm sure we could speak about AI tools for hours. I think it's a very interesting field, but I think that's a very nice point to end today's webinar on. So for all of you in the chat room, if you could quickly just write what did you like best about the webinar in 1 or 2 words. As I kind of mentioned, Kelly, you were the winner of the quiz. Sorry for taking your moment away from you. But we have that bottle of champagne and box of chocolates. And time to award our last winner of the bottle of champagne or box of chocolates. And that is from Louise, who says, we've created a call evaluation form where empathy is one of the key factors. We decided on the measure by using call examples to create a benchmark. Involved with the team in this is they are the ones who take the calls. Every call is different, so it's about having a mutual understanding of expectations. Coaches also collaborate when evaluating for consistency. So I think that's a very nice tip. So congratulations, Louise, for winning our prize. And just a quick note for everybody: when you're leaving the webinar, if you could just quickly fill in our survey, it's great because we always like to gather feedback, as I'm sure you've known from the amount of slides that we've put up on it today. But just a quick reminder, if you want to catch up on anything, a replay will be available later this afternoon at the address www.callcenterhelper.com/recorded-webinars. So there's now just time for me to thank all of our speakers today. So thank you, Miguel, Jason, and Katie for joining us. And yeah, we'll be back next week. So yeah, please join us then, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.